Maxim 6, Axelrod's contribution, the husbanding of assets, or the husbanding of assets. There are circumstances where deception assets should be husbanded despite the cost of maintenance and risk of waste, awaiting a more fruitful use. Such decisions are often susceptible to rational analysis. Window, later renamed chaff by the Americans, was easily the most cost-effective ECM deception device introduced in World War II. It was developed independently by the British, the Germans who called it Doppel, and the Japanese who called it Gemenshi, meaning deceiving paper. There was initially a great debate amongst the British as to whether and or when it should be used. This concern arose because the British did not have a countermeasure and feared German reprisal. The same concern was felt in Germany, where under Göring's orders, all the relevant reports concerning German developments were destroyed. The British debate, which lasted some 16 months, culminated in Churchill's decision to open the window. Shortly thereafter, it was used by the RAF to great effect on the night of 24-25 July 1943 in a raid on Hamburg. Whether this delay in deployment was an enlightened decision, as has been argued by Price and by Watson Watt, or, like the colonel on the River Kwai, some of our own authorities, a reference to Watson Watt, most closely associated with radar, could hardly bring themselves to face a countermeasure to a system they had built up. A case of emotion dominating reason, as Jones had argued, it furnished a concrete illustration of a more general dilemma, that is, how and when to employ a depreciable asset that is perhaps costly to maintain. It is also interesting to note that concern over whether an asset will become valueless once used, or that upon compromise, an effective countermeasure can and will be developed, are often overly pessimistic. In spite of the agonizing over the first use of the chaff, it is still considered effective in today's sophisticated electronic warfare environment. Similarly, in the use of double agents, a refusal to believe the asset is other than genuine has been observed to continue in the face of strong evidence of hostile control. Axelrod furnishes other examples of this same type. Employment of Ultra in World War II, the Syrian decision to withhold use of its new SAM air defense despite losses until the opportune time in the 1973 war, and the use of double agents by Britain in connection with the Normandy deception. He also presents a simple yet useful mathematical model to gain quantitative insight into the problem. A concise technical statement of this model and solution is provided in Figure 5. The essence of the problem examined by the model is this: should a given opportunity be taken and an immediate gain achieved, even though the asset may subsequently be valueless, or should the asset be saved in expectation of better gains to come? If the asset is saved rather than used, there is a cost of maintenance and risk of compromise. The optimal solution to this problem takes the form: if the value of the opportunity exceeds a threshold that can be calculated in principle, use the asset, otherwise save it. The optimal threshold is a function of the distribution of opportunities, risks of compromise, and cost of maintenance. Ceteris paribus, the optimal threshold increases as the likelihood of compromise given use increases, such as if the asset is less likely to be able to be used again, bigger stakes are required to justify its use, and decreases as the discount factor increases and/or the cost of maintenance increases. Both of these results are in accord with intuition. What is somewhat expected, however, is that for opportunity distributions that are highly skewed, many opportunities of low value and progressively fewer of high value, as might be expected in practice, the optimal threshold is not highly sensitive to the above factors. Moreover, for highly skewed distributions of future opportunity, the analysis shows that it pays to wait for high stakes, big opportunities, despite risks of compromise and/or costs of maintenance. This latter finding is particularly intriguing as, according to Axelrod, turning the perspective around, one can see that it would be a mistake to evaluate the opponent's resources for surprise by what you have seen when the stakes were low or moderate. He may be rationally waiting for an event with sufficiently large stakes to justify the exploitation of whatever resources for surprise he has. Thus, recall the discussion regarding the law of small numbers. Not only is it hazardous to draw inferences from limited data, given an assumed constancy in stakes, but also rational analysis suggests that the opponent's behavior may well be different when the stakes are high. That is, prior experience may simply be irrelevant.